Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Become a Guest to Apply. All right, so today I have Chris Marentis on the line, and he is founder and CEO of Surefire Local. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Adam. Look forward to talking with you.
All right, Chris. So this is one of my favorite topics, really providing resources and ways for business owners to succeed and to thrive in their local markets. And that's exactly what Surefire Local is doing. I'm so excited to get into this topic and to give some tips to our audience, or get some tips for our audience from you, I should say. Before we do that, we'll get into our Mission Matters Minute. So Chris, we at Mission Matters, we amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. That's our mission. Chris, what mission matters to you?
The mission that matters to me is really helping those entrepreneurs that you're talking about. In a world where digital transformation is happening with big businesses at a really rapid pace, small businesses are catching up, but not quite as fast. Yeah. And there's a reason why this has to happen, because it's becoming much more complex, especially in marketing, to manage this proliferation of different channels that you have to deal with. So our mission that matters to us is really helping entrepreneurs build a steady pipeline of new customers, high value new customers, and manage that customer relationship in this new modern marketing paradigm. Because marketing today is not like it used to be 15 years ago, where you bring a customer in and then you bring another customer in. Yeah. It's managing that relationship over what's called the customer journey. And to do that, you really need technology enablement. And we love helping entrepreneurs do that.
Yeah, Chris, when you say, I'm just thinking about this as you say it, like when you say that marketing and building a pipeline, it's not like it was 15 years ago. I feel like it wasn't like it was, 2 years ago. Everything is just moving so fast. The speed of change just blows my mind, and excited to get your vantage point. But let's start a little bit further back in your career, or just in general. Like, how did you get started on this path as being an entrepreneur, really wanting to help small business?
Yeah, that's a great question. I wrote a book, an ebook about 10 years ago. I wrote several of them, but the first one was a book called Surefire Social, probably being a little bit, cute. But the point was, marketing had a profound change when Web 2, what's called Web 2, came into play. And what it did was, I call it atomizing the web. 10 years ago, a business owner could create, a print ad and create different sizes for different print publications they'd be in, a yellow page ad, and maybe a radio and TV ad if they're a little bit more advanced, and do that. And then, put their flights in place and then forget it, set it and forget it. And then next year sort of go back and revisit it. But what happened was the web went from being sort of, Web 1, which I was a big part of when I was an executive at AOL, to Web 2, where it's much more dynamic, and you really needed to understand how to not only, sort of have a relationship, which means it's two-way and you're sort of going back and forth with that, but also this atomization with all these different channels, with review sites and directory listings and, pay-per-lead channels and pay-per-click channels and email marketing and a digital asset manager and all these things, right? And it became so complex, so I wrote a book in honor of my dad, who was an HVAC contractor. I never did anything in the small business space. I always was working with Fortune 500 companies in this idea of digital transformation. And I realized how local was going to change in a big way. It was going to change because entrepreneurs finally had the opportunity to actually own eyeballs versus renting eyeballs, I call it. In the old day, you bought those ads and then you hope people came in and then you hope to sell them, right?
Yeah.
But now you could, go out there and create a relationship and continue that relationship through email marketing, through text messaging, through pay-per-click, efficiently targeting them versus just the whole universe, right? So So it changed, and I wanted to just inform business owners how it was changing. The other significant change, by the way, was geo proximity becoming so important.
Yeah.
Geo proximity signals becoming so important to the machines, search engines, and all those algorithms. When you combine those two things, if entrepreneurs just did a few things across all these new channels in a consistent strategy, both from what's called structured data information about their company, as well as then do recency, proximity, and relevancy signals across all these channels, they could actually win and own the eyeballs and bring down their overall marketing costs.
Yeah.
So I wrote a book in honor of my dad just to let them know that. And I never intended to really start to scale this the way I did. But what happened was people would come back to me after buying the book and the resource center and things like that and say, hey, look, my web person doesn't get it. My SEO person doesn't get it. My, my social media, my wife has been doing it or that's been doing it and they don't really understand it. Can you just do it for me?
Yeah.
So in the early days of this, what's called APIs, which are like sort of the way machines talk to each other, they weren't developed enough with all the different tools that I was working. So I started actually doing it sort of by hand for customers in a at scale way. And around 2014, APIs became mature enough with our partners like Google and Bing and Yext and Yellow Page, all these different places where then we could actually really create, a marketing cloud that made this super simple, right? And created the workflow to make it super simple and give these entrepreneurs the power of a marketing cloud like the Adobe Marketing Cloud that billion-dollar companies use for a fraction of the cost.
Yeah. So I want to start this conversation kind of basic. And the reason why is when I think back about, some small business owners out there, I think about my dad. So he was a small business owner and he's, now retired, but he didn't make it, he just wasn't of the age to where he was going to be going through the whole digital transformation part and what that looks like. But like thinking about somebody like my father or like some others that are out there that have never done really much digital, like talk about the importance of local just in general and the difference between, because even when sometimes people hear, Google or this or that, they think maybe it is, if they've never run ads or done anything like that, they maybe think it doesn't apply to them.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And like if we focus on businesses that need to generate new customers within a geography, which is a big distinction from a small business, and they're both great, but that's our technology stack and the workflow is specifically built to generate new customers within a geography. When you think about that local, I can't tell you how many customers we've taken over where they're doing pay-per-click marketing from another agency who's not experienced in local, where they're actually buying ads across the country. They didn't put local geography parameters on what they were buying. So that's
wasting money,
simple.
basically.
Yes, super simple. And they wonder why they're not converting as many of the leads into sales because they're all out of market, right? But there's also other things that are really unique to local. Like, for example, a contractor, the way most machines prioritize who comes up in a search, right, is the biggest signal is your physical address, right?
Yeah.
So if you're a roofing contractor, for example, your physical address might be in a commercial zone that has a zip code that has a lot of other commercial companies in it. But your primary revenue might be from other zip codes where your key customers are, higher net worth homes or whatever that might be. So you need to find ways to create signals or amplify signals of where you do work. So we create a product called GeoJuice that lets you do a check-in, for example. So your salesperson or your production people could do a check-in So
Hmm.
it creates and amplifies where you're doing business. And then after the job, you can take a picture of
Yeah.
the new kitchen or the new roof or the new whatever, and it goes into your digital asset manager. So you could use that picture and repurpose it on your
Hmm.
website or in social media or on local directories and easily share that. So it just helps you create that signal in that key area you want to
Yeah.
generate new customers from, and also create content for that recency, proximity, relevancy signals to keep on amplifying, your geographic area that you want to
Hmm.
do business.
So you mentioned, one of the mistakes that some agencies make, or even the small business owners themselves, if they're doing it, is maybe not targeting local enough. So, for example, if you're using your dad's example, HVAC, if you're running an HVAC company, right, and you're targeting out of your market, well, you're kind of pouring money maybe down the drain, assuming you don't have another partnership or referral partner elsewhere, something like that. But for the most part, you're just wasting marketing dollars, really. So other than that, like, what are some of the other mistakes or opportunities that you find when you kind of start digging in on a new with for a new client in terms of like finding them a leads?
Well, one of the absolute key things, it's sort of the hub of the spoke, is
Yeah.
Google My Business, right? In fact, I was just visiting my family for the Thanksgiving holiday down
Yeah.
in Florida, and there's a caregiver that takes care of my mother, and I'm going to take care of her now. But she doesn't even have a Google My Business
Hmm.
presence, right? And I
Yeah.
asked her, I said, gee, what's the number one sort of issue? Because she says she'd love to grow. Is it labor? Because a lot of people are sort of having labor issues
Hmm.
for the demand, or is it demand? And she says no, it's demand, especially demand from certain types of customers, who will pay for at home, full-time healthcare, right?
Yeah.
And I started looking up, and I looked in in Google Maps, and I looked her up in Google My Business, and she really didn't have a presence there.
Hmm.
Google My Business will grab certain content and kind of put up a basic
Yeah.
presence there, but it doesn't have anything in that that's going to help you win in the search game. And this is Google, who is the number one search engine on the planet. I would say Google My Business is sort of the ante that
Hmm.
everything else really needs to flow off of. But that's sort of the tip of the iceberg, where
Hmm.
once you create all that, I call it structured data. It's not that
Hmm.
complicated. It's your business name, it's your business phone number, it's your business address. It's, there's structured data around the types of services you create that the government creates. So it makes it easy for
Hmm.
machines to find you, right?
Yeah.
Well, if you have that same structured data, right, that you have in
Hmm.
Google My Business, and it's pushed to all the other places on the
Hmm.
internet too, that same exact way, what happens is that the machines give you more authority as a business,
Yeah.
right? And then that authority translates to them trusting you more.
Hmm.
So they're more likely to serve you up in a search, because ultimately, search is a competitive game like anything else. You want to get
Yeah.
the best customer experience. You want to serve up the businesses that look like they're most buttoned down and have
Hmm.
most authoritative are going to be the ones that are served up. So local, obviously, having those same zip codes and the same services codes and all those things are critical.
So let's go further into Surefire Local as a business in general. So tell us a little bit more about the specific services that you offer.
Yeah. So think about it in sort of three sort of buckets in terms of, we help a business manage the way customers interact with them
Mm.
across all the sort of SEO channels, if you will, the paid media channels like
Hmm.
Google and Bing and Facebook and Yelp and others, right?
Yeah.
And then there's tools, right? Like email marketing your customers,
Hmm.
and text messaging your
Hmm.
customers, and creating a place where you can organize all your pictures and videos and badges and recognitions and things
Yeah.
like that so you could share them around. So we take all those different things that are right now operating in silos, whether a business does it themselves or
Hmm.
they hire an agency to do it, and we give the business owner and people on their staff all access to all those things. And
Yeah.
we show them how to build it into their workflow so it
Hmm.
isn't a burden to any one person in the company, so that you really have a clear, transparent view.
Hmm.
So it's not only how the customers interact and how you promote to them, but also the view of what's
Hmm.
working and what's not. And then benchmarking, because we have all this data with
Hmm.
all different, roofers and dentists and optometrists, we give you some benchmarking so you know how well are you doing relative to others. So we give you some deep insights into how you could improve, and we automate a lot of the tasks through through AI and automation, so
Hmm.
that it becomes less of a burden operating this, and it sort of guides you through the process.
So there's some people right now that are watching this, and that sounded complicated. Like you said, AI, you said a lot of buzzwords. Your everyday business owner that's out there working, they're like, how does that apply to me? Let's talk about reducing complexity, because I think
Yeah.
that's a big theme. Like when somebody is going through this digital transformation, they're thinking about, okay, like I have my current business, it's working, I'm doing this, I want to do better. Of course, I maybe want to grow, I have other things I want to do, but like how complex is all this going to be? So tell me a little bit
Yeah.
more about how you can make all those terms that you mentioned simpler for the business owner out there.
Yeah. Well, that's a really great question. And Adam, the one thing I could tell you is the AI is a mysterious word. It's about machine intelligence, but they don't even have to think about it, because really it manifests itself in a to-do list on the
Mm,
front of the application that just basically prioritizes the things that you could do to get the most
mhm.
return on investment. And those things are super simple. Like,
Yeah.
hey, you haven't gotten a new review in the last, month.
Wow.
Companies that look like you normally get 2 to 3 new reviews a month.
Mm,
Let's focus on it. If you forgot how to do it, click here and there'll be a video to show you, or set up an appointment with a customer success rep and we'll show
yeah.
you again how to do it. Right. Or it could be, you know, uh, you haven't added any new pictures to any of your directories in
Mm,
the last couple of months.
yeah.
Let's take one of the pictures you just, in your directory, and add it to the directories, because recency of content, we don't say this, but in the background, what we know is by having more recent content, at least if you
Yeah.
change it every month, it'll have the machines come back and reping your presence in those places to put you back up at the top of the priority list when
Hmm.
searches happen, right? Or it'll say, hey, gee, there's another probably 5 to 10 leads a month if you
Hmm.
up your spending by $300 a month in Google, because you're having a lot of success. And
Yeah.
if you just went $300, you'll be able to get 5 more leads at your cost per lead. So what we're doing is we're using these
Hmm.
buzzwords that they don't have to worry about, but we're using the power of that to
Yeah.
actually just create simple recommendations.
Hmm. So let's go further into some of the niches and the types of clients that you work with. Obviously, local, you can work with any business owner, but like, what are some of the main niches that you found get the most value out of working with you and your team?
Yeah, well, there's examples of optometry. We have
Yeah.
a fairly substantial optometry customer in Southern California, and they've been with us a little over a year now.
Mm,
And the problem that they were trying to solve was, they felt like, to your point, they could do a much better job targeting some local geographies. They knew
yeah.
they weren't doing it right. They had a combination of a web company just trying to do updates, but they were frustrated with the pace of those. one of the doctors, they have 3 doctors, I think
Yeah.
wives, full-time job was trying to do, the social media, and they felt like it wasn't as relevant and timely and frequent as they wanted it to be. And they really didn't understand how customers were interacting with them across these different places. They onboarded our platform, a little over a year ago. And really what they were looking at is, they created since then a more active online community around their business with social media and directories and other things. They've been super targeted and really effective in pay-per-click marketing and getting new customers. The net of it is, what's really interesting, their new customer count year over year is up over 48%.
Wow.
But what's interesting, revenue is up over 54%. So it's also this idea of leveraging what you say and how you frame, what your company's about to target new customers, right? So they're also able to increase price a lot more customers. Volume gives you confidence to increase pricing, but also targeting the right customers with the right types of messages that's a really awesome paradigm where you've got customer count up significantly, but revenue up, more than that.
Wow. Yeah, that's a big story. And when we're recording this, for them to have that kind of growth, and we're recording this in, 2021 in November. So if you think about like that last year or so that data is coming from, I mean, that wasn't necessarily the easiest, let's say, year for businesses, right?
Yeah, no,
so to have
right.
that type of reach, to have that type of change, one would expect like there's going to be more and more opportunity for a company like that.
Yeah. And Adam, some of the best stories, are like a little bit more anecdotal, but like for, a contractor, I'll never forget this, about 6 months ago, sent in a before and after picture of his truck bay.
Yeah.
And the before picture had like 3 trucks. The after had like 7 trucks.
Wow.
And he said, "Thank you, Surefire Local." Right. Because, one of the problems that they have is, reviews and reputation are such an important part of contractor work. And speed to lead is so important too, because that when someone's trying to get a new roof or a new kitchen or a new bathroom, they're going to do an online search, right? And they're probably going to have 3 to 5 different companies that they're going to call. And the first company that calls back and sets up the in-home visit has a definite advantage to closing that business, right?
Yeah.
So, we focus with the contractor on using that GeoJuice application to make sure they're getting check-ins in the best zip codes that have their best prospects in it, right?
Yeah.
And bringing them in. But then, with that same, GeoJuice application, when, Mr. and Mrs. Smith is sitting there saying, "You know what? I love my new roof, or I love my new kitchen, or I love new bath. You guys did a great job, and you did it on time and on budget." And you say, "Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, would you mind if I took a picture of your new kitchen so I could show other people?" So then you have got great content, because really, people think, when they think about, a content manager and like this idea of complication, they make it simple. People say, "Well, I don't know social media." You do social media every day. If I would say that to your social media is a picture of the job you did.
For sure.
Your social media is the story of that customer who told you about their problem and how you solved it for them. Your social media, so it's a lot less complicated than they really think, right? And what so what ends up happening is we build their reputation and we make it simple. We use technology in a way that just fits in. So it's just that person's already there talking to Mr. and Smith, Mrs. and Mrs. Smith, and saying, "Here's your new kitchen. Here's how it works. Why not just take a picture while you're there?" It makes a check-in, and then say, "Hey, Mr. Smith, other neighbors would also like to know," because they're going to make a difficult decision you did about who to hire. And I'm sure, I know we'd appreciate it. I'm sure they'd appreciate it if you would let them know that you thought we did a good job. So you're getting at the point of satisfaction where you're more likely to get, them to convert to that review. technology, people get afraid of it. It's sort of like,
Mhm.
but we build it into a workflow. I also like to say, marketing's a team sport,
For
right?
sure.
And that's why, the idea of trying to pay an agency $1,400 a month and just we'll make this all go away for you.
Yeah.
Not really. There's too many things, and that agency can't possibly keep up with all those things. And the friction points of you
Mhm.
sending them all the pictures, telling them what those pictures are, or you send them your customer file and they do the reviews. So software is the answer, but then you're stuck with all these silos
Yeah.
and worse, data silos, where you're not able to do all that, voodoo AI and all that
Mhm.
stuff I talked to you about, where you could really look at the correlation of all this data to
Mhm.
know how it all fits in and what's working. So those are some of the favorite stories of just a simple picture of here's my truck yard, a year ago, here it is now. And thank you, Surefire Local. It was awesome.
That's great, and it's very relatable, right? That's what many contractors want to do. You want to go from your 4 trucks to 7 trucks, from 7 trucks to 10 trucks, and to keep scaling your business,
And to do it profitably. Yeah.
exactly, and to keep
Yeah.
and to provide opportunities, right? To provide value, to provide great value for their clients. I think this is great. I mean, it's a great story. I mean, you mentioned the word onboarding maybe more than once in this interview. Tell us a little bit about the user experience and like how complicated it is to kind of go through that point of let's just say getting started to maybe getting some results.
Yeah, and that's a great question. And we spend a ton of time, sort of really perfecting that and taking the
Yeah.
burden off of the business owner. So we have an onboarding team. So right
Mm.
after you sign up, after you see a demo, if you think it's right for you and
Yeah.
solves your problems, you get to an onboarding manager whose sole job is to connect all these things to some of
Mhm.
which you probably have existing, like you might have a Facebook page. If you don't, we'll stand one up for you.
Yeah.
And we'll fill in those gaps of what's missing, what's not
Mhm.
missing, and connect all these things. So now you've got this, online presence, all the
Mhm.
structured data's right. And we find just after that onboarding, we clean up all that stuff,
Mhm.
there's generally a 25 to 30% bump in online activity for your
Yeah.
business just after that first 30 to 60 days,
Mhm.
just by cleaning all that up. But an onboarding manager will do all that and show you, how it all works. And
Mhm.
then once that's done, you get handed over to a customer success
Mhm.
manager who then helps you think about how do you build this into your workflow?
Mm.
How do you work today? Understand, what you're doing today. And then how do
Mhm.
you fit this in to your workflow? And really it's not that complicated. There's about 7 things
Mm.
that, you could do probably, whether it be 10 minutes a day or 30 minutes twice
Yeah.
a week or whatever it might be, because the software makes it super simple
Mhm.
where you could execute those 7 things. And we know, because we have all this data,
Mhm.
what the results are going to be 90 days out, 6 months out, a year out. So if you just do those things, you're going to get those results.
No, it's great and it's well said. And it's one of those things, especially if somebody going through digital transformation and they're just starting, or if somebody's working with somebody or working with, multitude of people, and it's just not like they feel like they could be doing better. That's the thing. I feel like business owners just know. Like they know when they have something that's really working in terms of the marketing side, not just because of the numbers, but they can just tell. And then they can tell when something's off or when there's like, well, I don't understand why I'm not getting this. No, so in my mind, I feel like local is really a missing link and a missing component just for many businesses out there.
Well, Adam, the coolest thing of what you just said, because you're absolutely right, business owners all want to better understand how am I doing relative
Yeah.
to other people who look like me, and we give them all those benchmarks.
Mm.
So,
So
so
there's no
you don't,
guessing there, like
yeah, there's no guessing. So and what you could be working on, or
Mm.
what for those entrepreneurs that are competitive and want to
Yeah.
win, we're giving you all those tools to be able to do that.
Wonderful. Well, Chris, I just have to say this has been great. I learned a lot about not just Surefire Local, but what myself as a local business owner, like what I should be thinking about in my market, just in general. If somebody, so what's next? I mean, what's next for you? What's next for Surefire Local?
We've got a awesome product roadmap, as we go into 22 that we're pretty excited about. But, we really, want to continue to expand our presence. We're becoming known as the number one, platform for professional service businesses that, want to have the power of a digital marketing platform.
Mm-hmm.
So, we just want to continue to serve the needs of our customers.
Yeah.
We are very much about entrepreneurs. We want to be the champion hero brand for entrepreneurs.
Fantastic. So Chris, if somebody's listening to this right now or watching and they want to connect with you and your team, what's the best way for them to do that?
Go to surefirelocal.com and you could either call us or you could fill out a form and we'd be super responsive. And what we would basically simply do is just set up a demo and just show you what it does and what other people do sort of in your category, whether you're an attorney or a contractor or medical practice or anything, like that. And you could decide for yourself if this makes sense for your business.
Fantastic. Well, Chris, again, appreciate you coming on the show today and sharing more about your background and how you got started as an entrepreneur. Of course, I mean, great story there, but also like your passion for helping small business owners and for helping them succeed. I mean, I think it comes through in your words. We can tell where your heart's at, and I know there's a lot of people that you're out there helping, and there's going to be many more that you do help in the future. Show notes will put your website and all that good stuff on there so that our audience can just go in there, click on it, and head right on over, because I definitely want everybody to go check that out. And to the audience, if this is your first time with us at Mission Matters, just so you know, so at Mission Matters, our goal here is really to share and amplify stories that matter, story of entrepreneurs, of business owners, of people that have a voice and that needs to be heard and that are really out there making a difference and adding value. So that's what it's all about. So hit that subscribe button if you haven't hit it yet. And we have many more mission-based entrepreneurs and executives coming up for you. And Chris, really, it has been a pleasure. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks, Adam. It was awesome.